Welcome back to your channel, Lee Oo Storyland. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked, please like, share, subscribe. Here we uncover a powerful stories inspired by real Reddit experience.
My name is Catherine Brooks, and I was 29 when my parents stood on the porch of the house I had spent 3 years repairing and told me I no longer lived there. "You don't live here anymore," my father shouted as he threw my bag onto the wet driveway. My mother stood behind him holding a locksmith's receipt, smiling as the new deadbolt clicked into place. By midnight, they had posted a photograph of themselves raising wine glasses inside the house with the caption, "Finally free of the daughter who used us." Relatives, neighbors, and half the town saw it before sunrise. I did not argue beneath the post. I did not beg them to open the door. I sat in my car, saved every screenshot, and waited for the lights to go out. At 5 the next morning, I returned carrying one cream-colored envelope. I slipped it beneath the door, walked back to my car, and smiled. They believed they had taken my home, my reputation, and the only family member who had ever protected me. What they did not know was that the house was never legally theirs. They also did not know that the envelope contained a deadline, account numbers, and evidence that someone inside that house had committed a serious crime. Before I tell you what my father screamed after opening it, and why my mother ended up crying on the kitchen floor, tell me what time it is, where you are, and where you're watching from. I want to know how far this story has traveled before their entire world begins to collapse. 3 months earlier, I lived in the converted attic of that same cedar-sided house in Ashford, Vermont. I worked as a historical document conservator for the University Archive, restoring water-damaged maps, handwritten journals, property deeds, and printing plates. My parents never considered it a real career. My father, David Brooks, called it gluing dead people's papers together. My mother, Lisa Brooks, introduced me as the daughter who still hadn't figured out her life. They tolerated me because I paid property taxes, repaired the house, covered heating bills, and handled nearly every emergency involving my grandmother, Matilda Hayes. The house belonged to Matilda, who had moved into a small apartment behind her former printing workshop. She had founded Hayes Letterpress 47 years earlier and could still identify a typeface by touch. When I was 9, she taught me to arrange metal letters backwards so they would print correctly. "The truth often looks reversed before pressure reveals it," she used to say. My parents treated her workshop as a burden until a developer offered more than $2 million for the building and adjoining land. Suddenly, my father visited every week. My mother brought pastries Matilda could not eat. They spoke about protecting the family legacy, but mostly asked where she kept deeds, investment statements, insurance records, and passwords. Have you ever watched people perform affection only after learning what someone owns? Once you recognize it, even kindness can sound like an invoice. My suspicions began with an accidental voicemail from my father. I heard papers moving, then his voice saying, "Once she signs the authorization, we control the building and accounts. Catherine cannot interfere because she has no standing." My mother replied, "Then get the signature before she changes her mind." The message lasted 18 seconds. That evening, I asked Matilda whether she had agreed to sell. She stared at me. "Absolutely not." I said I might lease the empty storage room. She showed me a folder my father had left for her. The first page described help with utility bills, but beneath it was a durable financial power of attorney, granting him control over her bank accounts, real estate, business assets, and medical decisions. Because my job involved examining originals, I noticed faint pressure marks near the signature line. Someone had placed another signed page over the document and traced Matilda's name. I photographed every page with her permission. Matilda became very still. "I raised Lisa better than this," she whispered. Hearing her blame herself hurt more than anything my parents had ever said to me. The next morning, we met Jeremy Cole, my childhood friend who had become a legal investigator specializing in financial exploitation of elderly property owners. He checked county filings, tax records, liens, banking notices, and corporate registrations. 4 days later, he found North Hollow Redevelopment, a company managed by my father with my mother listed as secretary. It had filed an option to acquire Matilda's workshop for $600,000, less than 1/3 of the developer's offer. The buyer was connected to my father's former business partner. Their plan was simple: obtain the property cheaply using Matilda's forged consent, resell it, and divide the profit. Jeremy warned us not to confront them yet. Matilda transferred the workshop, land, investment portfolio, and Cedar House into the Hayes Legacy Trust. She remained beneficiary and retained full control during her lifetime. I would become successor trustee only if she died or was independently declared incapable. An outside attorney, 2 witnesses, and a physician documented every decision. The trust prevented my parents from selling, mortgaging, or claiming any asset. Then Matilda decided to test them. She would announce that she had rejected the developer's offer and intended to preserve the workshop as a non-profit printing center. If they cared about her, they would accept her choice. If they cared only about money, they would reveal themselves. 2 weeks later, my father invited us to dinner. The invitation sounded warm enough to fool anyone who had not grown up in our family. My mother said she was cooking rosemary chicken, my childhood favorite, and my father wanted a calm discussion about everyone's future. Before dinner, Jeremy helped me install an encrypted recording application on my phone. Matilda carried no documents. I carried copies of the trust certificate, suspicious power of attorney form, and North Hollow filing. I still hoped my parents might retreat once Matilda spoke clearly. Dinner began with compliments. My mother praised Matilda's scarf. My father poured sparkling water and asked about her knees. Then he placed a brochure beside her plate, showing smiling elderly people outside an assisted living complex 90 miles away. "They have an opening next month," he said. "We already submitted your information." Matilda lowered her fork. "You applied without asking me?" My mother leaned across the table. "We knew you would resist. Responsible family members sometimes have to act first." My father said the workshop was unsafe. The stairs were dangerous, and the property had become too much for her. He mixed legitimate concerns with a hidden financial goal and called it compassion. Matilda told them she had hired contractors and planned to create a non-profit apprenticeship program. My father's expression changed. "Using what money?" he asked. "My money." She replied. "And my building." My mother stopped smiling. "That property is the family's only real opportunity. Do you understand what $2 million could do for all of us?" Matilda looked directly at her. "It could show me which of you values money more than my wishes." My father turned toward me. "You put this idea in her head." I said Matilda had made her own decision. He laughed and asked whether anyone would believe an 82-year-old woman had suddenly created a non-profit after spending time with a daughter who restored worthless scraps. I asked why North Hollow had filed an option on her property. The room fell silent. My mother tightened her grip on her napkin. My father claimed the company was only a planning vehicle designed to protect Matilda from taxes. "Planning for what?" I asked. "She never authorized a sale." First he said she had verbally agreed. Then he said she had forgotten. Finally, he said she had signed paperwork at the workshop. Matilda asked to see it. He said the lawyer had it. I placed the county filing on the table. This says the option was executed on March 3rd at 9 in the morning. Matilda never looked away from him. On March 3rd at 9, I was having cataract surgery in Burlington. My mother whispered his name, but he insisted the date was a clerical error. I showed them the traced power of attorney packet. My father's chair scraped backward. "You went through private documents?" he demanded. I reminded him that the documents had been left with the woman whose property he wanted to control. My mother accused me of poisoning Matilda because I wanted an inheritance. That accusation almost worked, because they had trained me to feel selfish whenever I objected to being used. Matilda ended the argument. I transferred my property into a protected trust. My father's face lost its color. He asked who controlled it. She said she did, with an independent attorney supervising extraordinary transactions. She did not mention my future role. My mother began crying from panic, not remorse. After everything we have done for you, you shut us out? Matilda reminded her that they lived rent-free in her house, had borrowed money repeatedly, and had received more than $100,000 over the years. My father struck the table. That house is ours. You gave it to Lisa. Matilda replied that she had allowed them to live there but never signed a deed. The argument ended when Matilda became dizzy. I took her outside while my mother accused us of staging the evening. Afterward, my parents began attacking me. My mother told relatives I had isolated Matilda and manipulated her. My father contacted my employer and claimed I had used confidential documents for personal gain. An internal review cleared me, but for 10 days my colleagues looked at me differently. My parents also called Adult Protective Services and reported that I was exploiting Matilda. The investigation ultimately strengthened our case because she spoke clearly and produced independent legal records. But it humiliated her. A social worker asked whether I threatened her, withheld medicine, or controlled her money. They would rather call me incompetent than admit I said no, Matilda said afterward. Jeremy then discovered something worse. 6 months earlier, my father had used a scanned copy of her signature to guarantee a $280,000 business loan for North Hollow. The loan was in default, and notices had been sent to an old postal box he controlled. If enforced, Matilda's workshop and investments could have been targeted. This was no longer a greedy family dispute. It was a deliberate attempt to make her responsible for debt she had never approved. Jeremy advised us to send the evidence to the bank's fraud department and the state financial crimes unit. Before we acted, my father called and asked me to come to the house alone. He said he wanted peace and claimed the conflict was harming Matilda. A part of me still hoped for an apology. Instead, I found both parents waiting beside a folder. My father said everything could disappear if I persuaded Matilda to dissolve the trust. In return, they would withdraw their complaints, contact my employer, and allow me to keep living in the attic. Shelter, reputation, and employment had become bargaining chips. I asked what would happen to North Hollow's debt. Once the property sells, the loan gets paid and everyone walks away, he said. I asked why Matilda should pay a debt she never signed. My mother replied, because families rescue each other. Their version of family required Matilda to sacrifice her workshop so they could escape fraud. I refused. My father lowered his voice. Then you are choosing her money over your parents. I said I was choosing her right to own what belonged to her. My mother claimed Matilda had promised them the house years earlier. When I asked for proof, she said family promises did not require paperwork. Apparently they do when you are trying to sell someone else's property, I answered. My father stepped closer. You have always needed to feel important. You found an old woman with money and made yourself indispensable. Matilda had attended my school events when they forgot, driven 3 hours to sit beside me after surgery, and remembered every birthday. Reducing our bond to money revealed that my parents could not imagine loving someone without expecting payment. I placed my phone face down and continued recording. Did Matilda authorize the loan guarantee? I asked. My father refused to answer. My mother said Matilda had signed so many papers that she probably forgot. I asked whether they had watched her sign it. My father shouted, "It was her signature file. She gave us access to it." My mother grabbed his arm, but the admission was recorded. Access to a signature image was not permission to attach it to a loan. I said I was leaving. My father blocked the doorway and demanded my phone. When I refused, he reached for it. I warned him the recording had already uploaded to secure storage. That was not completely true, but he believed me. My mother screamed that I had entered their home under false pretenses. I reminded her that the house belonged to Matilda and that I paid most of its expenses. Not anymore, my father said. He went upstairs, returned with 2 bags, and threw them onto the driveway. One held clothes. The other contained restoration tools, notebooks, and the metal printing block Matilda had given me. Rain soaked the papers before I could collect them. My mother called a locksmith while my father stood in the doorway. I told them they could not legally evict me without notice. "Sue us," he replied. Then he shouted, "You don't live here anymore." The locksmith hesitated, but my father described me as an unstable adult daughter who had been asked to leave many times. My mother confirmed the lie. I left safely rather than create a confrontation they could distort. 20 minutes later, my phone filled with notifications. They had posted that they had finally established boundaries with an exploitative family member. My mother wrote that they had supported me for years while I manipulated my grandmother. My father added, "The locks are changed. Peace has returned." Relatives praised their courage. A former classmate said adult children should stop expecting free housing. Someone from my mother's gallery called me dangerous. I began typing a response, then deleted it. I saved every screenshot and sent them to Jeremy. Matilda wanted to confront them immediately, but her attorney prepared something stronger. Because the trust owned the house, my parents were occupants by family permission, not owners. Matilda withdrew her earlier plan to grant them lifetime residency. The attorney prepared notice ending their permission to remain. The bank prepared a fraud preservation notice freezing transactions connected to North Hollow. The state investigator ordered them to retain all records. The trust's attorney prohibited removal of property because the house might contain evidence. All 4 notices went into one envelope with a handwritten letter from Matilda. "They made a spectacle of throwing you out," she told me. "Let the truth enter through the same door they closed." At dawn, I returned to the house. The new lock gleamed beneath the porch light. I slipped the envelope under the door, walked to my car, and watched the upstairs light come on. My father found the envelope at 5:17 a.m. The exterior security camera belonged to the trust and stored footage remotely. He carried the envelope into the kitchen while I drove away. 3 minutes later, he called. Then my mother called. He called 7 more times before leaving a voicemail. "What did you do?" The envelope contained a 30-day notice requiring them to vacate the house. It explained that their occupancy had been revocable family permission, not ownership. It prohibited them from removing appliances, fixtures, archived records, or business materials. The next document informed them that North Hollow's accounts had been flagged in a fraud investigation. Another advised that the lender had suspended enforcement against Matilda while reviewing the forged guarantee. Jeremy's summary listed account numbers, digital signature records, filing dates, and evidence already provided to authorities. The final document was Matilda's letter. "Lisa, I gave you a home because you were my daughter, not because you deceived me into surrendering my work. I paid your debts because I loved you, not because I agreed to guarantee another loan. You described me as confused when I refused your plan. Then you attacked Catherine because she listened when I spoke. I will not reward that conduct with my property. You must leave the house." The camera showed my mother sitting on the kitchen floor while my father paced between the table and window. He slammed both fists onto the counter hard enough to knock over a ceramic bowl. Then he opened the front door and searched the driveway as though I might still be waiting for permission to feel guilty. By 7, he had deleted their celebratory post, but screenshots had already spread through town. At 8:15, he arrived at Matilda's workshop and pounded on the glass. Jeremy was inside with us. My father shouted that I had manipulated an elderly woman into making herself homeless, even though Matilda owned the workshop apartment and controlled her trust. Jeremy informed him that all communication must go through counsel. My father threatened to report us again. Jeremy replied that investigators were already reviewing the earlier false report alongside the forged guarantee. My father muttered, "The lender cannot see the emails." Jeremy asked which emails he meant. My father realized his mistake and left. By afternoon, consequences began. The agricultural cooperative where he worked placed him on leave because North Hollow's loan application had listed his employer as a financial reference without authorization. My mother's gallery landlord suspended a planned expansion after learning she had attempted to use Matilda's property as collateral. Their business partner, Charles Mercer, denied knowing the agreement contained a forged signature and produced emails in which my father wrote that Matilda was mentally declining and that the family would gain control before closing. Their public humiliation turned toward them. People who had praised their post removed their comments. My aunt called, not to apologize, but to ask whether they would really lose the house. They tried to take property that was never theirs, I said. Now they are being asked to leave property that was never theirs. She called that cruel. I asked whether forging an 82-year-old woman's signature was kinder. My mother sent childhood photographs and wrote, "Does none of this matter?" Of course it mattered. Harmful parents are rarely cruel every minute. They preserve enough good memories to make you doubt your right to resist the bad ones. I replied, "The good things mattered. They do not authorize what you did to Matilda." She said I was destroying the family over paperwork. Paperwork was what she called a forged guarantee, a secret property option, a false report, and an attempt to have her mother declared incapable. 3 days later, my father requested mediation. Matilda agreed only if it took place in the public meeting room of Hayes Letterpress with attorneys and witnesses present. My parents believed mediation might save the house. They did not know Jeremy had recovered deleted files from an abandoned tablet found on trust property. The files included contracts, scanned signatures, and a spreadsheet titled, "After Matilda." One column listed the expected workshop sale, another allocated money to pay North Hollow's debts, purchase a lake house, and give me $25,000 marked Catherine Settlement, conditional on silence. The worst file was an audio recording accidentally made by my mother. She worried I might take Matilda to another attorney. My father replied, "Then Catherine goes first. Once she is out of the house and everyone thinks she is unstable, Matilda will have no one." Throwing me out had never been spontaneous anger. It had been part of their plan to isolate my grandmother. The mediation took place on a Friday evening inside the workshop. Rain struck the tall windows while Matilda sat beside her attorney. I sat with Jeremy and the trust administrator. My parents arrived with separate lawyers, showing that their alliance was already breaking. Charles Mercer attended remotely. A bank investigator, a state representative, non-profit board members, and the workshop accountant were also present. My father described himself as a devoted son-in-law who had made technical errors while protecting an aging relative. He claimed Matilda had verbally approved the loan and forgotten. My mother's attorney argued that she had relied on her husband and did not understand the filings. Only weeks earlier, she had said they made every decision together. Now she was preparing to save herself by abandoning him. Matilda's attorney presented her medical evaluations, proving she was competent when the alleged guarantee was created and when she established the trust. Next came hospital records showing she was having eye surgery on the morning the property option had supposedly been signed. Then came the guarantee metadata. Her signature image had been copied from a holiday card scan stored on my mother's gallery computer and inserted into the loan file 18 minutes after my father emailed the lender claiming Matilda had signed in person. My father blamed an assistant but could not identify one. Jeremy displayed North Hollow emails. In one, my father wrote that the workshop could be acquired cheaply because The old woman trusts family and hates conflict. In another, he said I was emotionally dependent and could be removed if necessary. Charles's attorney claimed Charles had assumed I would move voluntarily. Whether truthful or self-protective, his cooperation isolated my father. My mother said she had never known about the emails. Matilda's attorney placed a printed message before her. Catherine is the obstacle. Once she is gone, Mom will sign whatever David puts in front of her. My mother began crying. I was angry. I didn't mean it literally. Matilda asked, "Which word did you not mean? Catherine? Gone? Or signed?" No one answered. Then the spreadsheet titled "After Matilda" appeared on a screen. The projected lake house purchase and my $25,000 silence payment were highlighted. My father blamed Charles. Charles produced the original email showing my father had created the file. My mother claimed she had never seen it. Jeremy displayed her reply. 25 is too much for Catherine. She will accept 10 if we remind her how much she owes us. Seeing my name reduced to a price made their intentions brutally clear. I asked my mother whether she remembered the night I stayed awake with her after her gallery nearly failed and used my savings to pay her vendors. Was that included in what I owed you? Her attorney advised silence. Finally, Jeremy played the tablet recording. My mother's voice asked, "What if Catherine takes her to another lawyer?" My father answered, "Then Catherine goes first. Once she is out of the house and everyone thinks she is unstable, Matilda will have no one." My mother asked whether throwing me out would look suspicious. He said they would describe it as setting boundaries with an ungrateful adult child. People love that language. They will congratulate us. Their online post had used almost those exact words. My father stood, pointed at me, and shouted that I had stolen the device. His attorney ordered him to sit. I answered calmly. "I spent years trying to earn your approval. Hatred would have been easier. You mistook my patience for dependence. You thought throwing me out would make me powerless. It only removed my last reason to protect you from consequences." Matilda's attorney presented a settlement. My parents would waive all claims to the house, workshop, trust, and investments. They would leave within 21 days, return trust property, surrender copies of Matilda's signature, and cooperate with investigators. My mother would transfer her North Hollow interest to a receiver. My father would resign as manager. Remaining company funds would be preserved for creditors and restitution. In exchange, the trust would not pursue additional civil claims for unpaid occupancy, property damage, or previous loans. The agreement could not stop prosecutors, but cooperation might be considered. My father called it extortion. My mother asked whether she could remain if she separated from him. Matilda's answer was firm. "You did not protect me when you thought David could make you wealthy. You do not regain my trust by leaving after the plan fails." My mother sobbed and asked how a parent could make her daughter homeless. Matilda replied, "The same way my daughter made her daughter homeless, except I am giving you lawful notice and time to move." My father turned on my mother. He accused her of creating the signature scam. She accused him of losing their savings and hiding the debt. Their argument revealed that he had lost almost $90,000 on speculative investments and planned to replace it through the redevelopment deal. My mother knew the property transaction was deceptive, but not the full size of the debt. Their world did not collapse because of one envelope. It collapsed because the envelope forced every lie into the same room. My mother signed the settlement. My father refused until the bank investigator warned that the lender would seek an emergency freeze on personal assets. He looked at Matilda. "You would destroy your family for a building?" She replied, "No. You tried to destroy this family for a building." He signed. The agricultural cooperative later fired him after finding that he had misused internal financial projections. My mother's gallery partners bought out her share at a reduced value after discovering business funds had been transferred to North Hollow. The company entered receivership. The developer withdrew. Months later, my father accepted a plea agreement related to fraudulent use of a signature, falsified loan records, and attempted exploitation. He received probation, community service, strict financial restrictions, restitution, and investigative costs. My mother avoided conviction by cooperating, entering a diversion program, and admitting her role. They were not dragged away in handcuffs, but they lost the house, their business plan, much of their reputation, and the authority they had used to control our family. Most importantly, they lost access to Matilda. For several months, I lived in the apartment above Hayes Letterpress. I could have returned to the Cedar House after my parents left, but the rooms felt poisoned by what had happened. They had packed my certificates, journals, restoration samples, and birthday cards into boxes, as though my life were clutter. The trust repaired the house and leased it to a new family. The rent funded Matilda's nonprofit. The workshop became the Hayes Center for Print and Preservation, offering paid training in letterpress printing, paper conservation, book repair, and archival digitization. High school students worked beside retired craftspeople. The university donated damaged books for supervised practice. Matilda attended twice a week, correcting everyone's posture and refusing to let anyone call her fragile. I became preservation director while continuing part-time at the university archive. I did not inherit a fortune or seize control of Matilda's money. She remained responsible for every decision. The trust only ensured that no one could override her through deception. My parents had claimed I wanted control. What I wanted was for Matilda to keep hers. Jeremy joined the nonprofit's ethics committee. Our friendship deepened through quiet evenings labeling evidence, repairing drawers, and drinking terrible coffee while Matilda pretended not to watch us. My mother wrote several letters. The first defended herself. The second blamed my father. The third apologized for how things looked. I returned them. An apology that refuses to name the harm is another form of control. Almost a year later, she sent a fourth letter. I helped use Mom's signature without permission. I supported removing you so she would be easier to pressure. I lied online because I wanted other people to punish you for resisting us. I am ashamed. She did not ask for forgiveness. I kept the letter but did not answer immediately. My father never apologized. He told relatives we had been influenced by lawyers, then claimed the punishment exceeded the mistake. He still called it one mistake, as though a single careless moment had caused everything. But there had been dozens of choices: creating the company, copying the signature, filing the option, securing the loan, hiding notices, reporting me, contacting my employer, changing the locks, and celebrating online. A pattern is not an accident simply because the consequences arrive together. 16 months after the envelope, Matilda asked whether I regretted losing my parents. I told her I regretted losing the parents I had kept hoping they would become. That grief was real, even though my decision was right. Cutting contact did not erase memory, love, or longing. It simply stopped those feelings from being used as permission for further harm. Matilda held up the metal printing block she had given me. The word home was still carved backward. We inked it and pressed it onto thick cotton paper. On the page, the word appeared correctly. Pressure reveals the truth, she said. That print became the first piece displayed inside the center. People often describe revenge as making someone suffer exactly as they made you suffer. I learned something different. The most satisfying justice was not changing my parents' locks or humiliating them online. It was refusing to lie for them. It was documenting what they did, protecting the person they targeted, and allowing lawful consequences to reach them. I did not destroy their lives. I stopped sacrificing mine to hold their lives together. Family loyalty should never require silence about exploitation. Respecting parents does not mean surrendering your judgment, home, or right to protect someone vulnerable. Gratitude is not a debt that allows relatives to control you forever. Sharing blood does not make every action forgivable. Real family is built through honesty, responsibility, protection, and the willingness to listen when someone says no. My parents believed the house proved they had won. They changed the locks, posted their victory, and assumed I would return begging for shelter. Instead, the envelope reminded them that possession is not ownership, intimidation is not love, and silence is not consent. I eventually answered my mother. I said her admission was a necessary beginning but did not restore our relationship. Any future contact would require therapy, accountability, and respect for Matilda's boundaries. I made no promises. Forgiveness, if it came, would not mean returning to the same table and pretending nothing happened. As for my father, I stopped waiting for understanding. Some people apologize only when consequences become unavoidable. Others never apologize because admitting harm would destroy the image they have built of themselves. Healing cannot depend on either one. Have you ever been called selfish because you refuse to let family use you? Have you ever discovered that the people demanding loyalty offered none in return? You are allowed to protect your future. You are allowed to document the truth. You are allowed to leave a home where love is used as leverage. Sometimes one envelope does not destroy a family. Sometimes it reveals that greed, deception, and control already destroyed it, and gives the people who were silenced a chance to build something honest from what remains.
We appreciate every viewer who stayed with us until the final moment. All events and characters in this story are fictional and created only for storytelling and educational entertainment. We hope it reminds you that being strong does not mean pretending nothing hurt you. Real strength can also mean admitting the pain, learning from it, and refusing to let the same people continue writing your story.